When you're in conflict with someone, do you ever get a sneaky suspicion that the subject that you're arguing about isn't the real problem? If you do, that might mean that you're upset about a pseudo issue. Pseudo issues often get in the way of genuine connection, and they are big blockers of intimacy, so it's really helpful to keep a beady eye out for them in relationships. My name is Shelley, and I'm a specialist relationship coach, helping people all over the world to heal their broken hearts and to reconnect to life and love. In this video, I'm going to talk you through an example of a pseudo issue so you can start to get clarity on the traps associated with pseudo issues and ultimately get below the surface of what's really going on. The first thing to know is that pseudo issues tend to arise as a kind of fear response. They are ways of making or masking our deepest insecurities as they help us to stay distracted by something else rather than focusing on the issues that make us the most uncomfortable. One type of pseudo issue arises in the shape of triangulation, and triangulation is when a third person is brought into the relationship, often as a kind of distraction. Here's an example for you. I had a couple I was working with in couples coaching, and I'm going to call them Betty and Michael. This couple spent a lot of time talking about the issues with their young son, Freddie, who'd been frequently getting into trouble at school. Betty felt that it was because Freddie wasn't getting enough attention at home from Michael and would frequently berate Michael for not being present, both physically and emotionally, and for spending too much time at work. Michael, on the other hand, expressed that he thought Betty had mollycoddled Freddie and had turned him into a spoiled child. In Michael's eyes, this was the issue, that Freddie had been given an unrealistic expectations about getting everything that he'd wanted, and that he needed to be given a bit of healthy grounding at school by not always getting his own way. So Michael felt that the discipline of the school was a good antidote to Betty's overprotectiveness and would help Freddie to become a much more rounded individual. And Betty was upset by the fact that Freddie was getting into difficult situations at school in the first place. Michael blamed Betty, Betty blamed Michael, and the more that Betty accused Michael of causing the problem by not being around him enough, the more Michael retreated into his work and avoided being at home. So the more Michael said that Freddie should be disciplined at school, the more Betty felt inclined towards overprotection, and they went around in circles, reinforcing the behavior of the other. As I worked with the couple, it was clear to me that the issue in the marriage wasn't Freddie. The real issue was their inability to communicate effectively with each other. They were both so stuck in defending their positions that they were unable to communicate the underlying fears and insecurities, and the fact that they'd also been drifting apart over the years. Freddie's problems at school and the different approaches that Betty and Michael had towards Freddie were a pseudo issue. When we collectively started addressing some of the real problems in their marriage, things started to shift for them in a really positive way. As I worked with Betty and Michael in getting them to look at how they viewed support and how they had experienced this in their childhoods, it became apparent that Michael had been put into boarding school when he was 6 years old and had to fend for himself. His mother had died from cancer when he was 5 years old, and his father was consumed with grief. Betty's mother had favoured her sister, and Betty had never felt seen or heard. In their marriage, Betty and Michael were doing the best they could with the knowledge that they had available and on how to get their needs met and how to be in a relationship and how to parent, but they were repeating their fears of the past and doing what their parents had done, or the opposite of what their parents had done. So in our sessions together, they became aware of their deepest longings and unmet needs and how to address their vulnerabilities instead of blaming one another. They learned to dialogue differently, so they both felt heard and understood. If you want to avoid getting stuck in non-productive conflict about a pseudo issue, my advice is, if you're going to find a way around arguing a particular issue that often comes up, ask yourself, what is it that I need in order to feel better? What does the situation mean to me, and what might be going on beneath the surface? The more you practice looking beneath the surface at what's really going on, the more you'll be able to find yourself and be able to confront the genuine challenges that you have in expressing your needs and getting them met. It takes courage to look at real issues, but it brings great rewards. And the rewards of being properly seen and heard and being able to express yourself, the rewards of genuine connection. If you'd like to hear a little bit more about how to stay focused in a productive and healthy mindset, you might want to take a look at my video on interdependence, and I'll put a link to that video here for you now. I love sharing my tools and tips and guidance with you and supporting you on your journey to thriving relationships. Please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the subscribe button so that we can travel this path together, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.